Mahalo day, talofa, everyone. I hope you all are having a great day or most likely evening from wherever you're viewing this broadcast.
Just
Oh,
want to
too, I was going to say, are we going to close it out or you think we're going to touch on sports? Do we have time to touch on sports or
do. If you
it's
got
up to
time,
you?
we'll go into the sports.
Yeah,
You got
I
time?
got some time. I got some time. I got some
Okay.
time.
All right. With that being said, the segment on William Mariner is officially closed.
Hmm.
We really want to, we're going to, what this is the fun about doing live digital kava sessions, eh?
Hmm.
We finished the bucket or the kumete and everyone thought it was going to be the last one. But then someone else showed up with another bag and said,
Come on,
guys,
bag.
let's follow one more
Yeah.
kava bag.
and
So
then and
that's
then
what
the
we're
rest
going
of
to
the
do.
guys the rest of the guys who were planning to leave, they're like, you know what, this guy just came, give another camera, they'll get kata bit, so everyone is still kata bit.
Yeah. For all the listeners and the viewers, no one is gonna be allowed to go use the restroom and say I'll be right back. Or guys, I just gotta take this phone call. Just tell us the truth. You're gonna leave. You're gonna go home. You don't have to lie to us and tell us that you'll be right back. But yeah, let's do that, Masi, and let's I wanted to start this segment by really having a conversation about the impact of Polynesians on sports, and let's just stay in the Pacific region in Australia and New Zealand, but specifically New Zealand. Um, and that's where I really want to kind of have this conversation kind of head towards. And this is tied to what Sam is saying here, right? Sam
Oh, I
Tamakawa
watched
says
that game.
Moana gave
Yes,
it to the Blues,
I
right?
watched that
And
game. Yeah.
actually, yeah. And this is kind of a driver behind that. But I want to go back and people who know me, I'm not a big fan of New Zealand rugby. And I used to be. During Jonah Lomu's time, I was a big Jonah Lomu fan. I was an all black fan. I still remember being frustrated when George Gregan first showed up and I was an all blacks fan. And in the Bledisloe Cup, I think it was Jeff Wilson. They were behind by, if they scored a try, they would have won. And
Mm.
Jeff Wilson or someone was trying to score in the corner. George Gregan tackled them, and either there was a knock on or stayed under the ball, and the All Blacks lost. I remember being so frustrated because I was such a huge All Blacks fan, and then with Jonah Lomu. But then as I got older, I started to notice certain things. I started to notice that New Zealand Rugby Union was promoting rules that really didn't help the Pacific nations, right? Then I started to notice, like the year before every World Cup, the All Blacks would pull up a bunch of Polynesians, play them against the junked international teams, and then drop them just before the World Cup.
Mm.
Because I would get so excited, like, oh man, Pita Tupulotu, or all these new Tongan
Mm.
guys, especially the Tongan guys. Oh man, they might make it to the World Cup. And then they'd be dropped just before the World Cup, and then never hear from them again. Then after you see that for a couple World Cups, you're like, hey, there's some kind
What's
of
going on?
fishy stuff going on here, right? And so that slowly has kind of turned me not to be excited about New Zealand Rugby Union, but I finally feel or see that New Zealand Rugby Union is getting a taste of their own medicine lately, with a lot of players leaving younger to go to Asia, to go to Europe, these
Mm.
Polynesian players who in the past would have sacrificed financial opportunity to wear the black jersey. Now they're like, nope, I'm gonna go and take care of my family. I'm gonna forego the All Blacks jersey. Um, but what are your thoughts on that, Mussy, before we go in and start talking about some of those things?
With the NZRU, New Zealand Rugby, I agree with you, Dua, but I see. I've now that I've kind of been here, I don't think it's a New Zealand rugby thing. It's a world rugby issue. That's, to me, that's the thing. I think New Zealand is just playing. I feel like they know they can't change it, any rules to make it fair, Dua. That's
Mm,
just me. So they're just saying, you know what? This is the rules. We have the field of the golden mines with the Polynesian players. We're just gonna we're just gonna use it. You could argue like with those, especially the Polynesians, they would have been better in the World Cups, but because they had so much, let's just say they had the first pickings, they could have just used them up just to make the competition less because their goal is to win
yeah,
the World Cup.
yeah.
And in to my belief, Dua, if Australia was in New Zealand's position, they would have done it. If South Africa was in New Zealand's position, they would have done it. The England, same thing. It's just because of the different regions where they're at the moment. But like what you're saying, now the talent is starting to get spread across. So now New Zealand is really, they're in a struggle. They're in a weird predicament at the moment because now they're thinking they have to probably start thinking about letting overseas people who play in other clubs to change the rules on that. That's gonna help the Polynesian Islands nations rugby teams. So to me, that's just my position on that. Dua, to me, this is a more bigger issue in the world governing body of rugby. That's to
Okay,
me. That's
okay.
where I see that. To me, that's where I see the issue. And those are the real players. If those guys were willing to change, I don't believe if New Zealand was the only one making that change or saying that change, they're gonna change. It's gonna take a good amount of influenced to influence the world rugby to change its
Mm.
governing policies. That's just me. Now that I've kind of been here and seen it, and I've kind of just done my own thing, I was like, I think New Zealand is just using what they gave, and they're just doing real good at it because one, they're the first place where Polynesian families migrate to, so they get the first pickings. But like what you said, to
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Okay. I mean, I could possibly concede that, but the one area I'm still gonna hold New Zealand Rugby Union to be accountable for. World Rugby didn't force them to pick up these Polynesian players the
that's the
year
thing.
before
Yeah,
the World Cup and drop them off.
that's true. That's
It
true.
sounded like to me that's the same tactic that these powerhouse football programs would do before they had the 60 plus scholarship limit. Is
Hmm.
Alabama and those guys would just recruit kids, those certain kids that they weren't even intending to play, but they
Yeah.
were just going to have them sit on their bench because their mentality was it's better that they sit on our bench than play against us from another team. And I
No, and
feel that's what New Zealand did for decades.
like, yes, and I can see that point, especially with they created this new team, the Moana Pasifika team, because it's good to say they're being perceived, they're helping the Polynesian nations. But guess what? If New Zealand NZRU wants a player to play for the All Blacks, they're eligible because there's no rule that they say they can't pick a player from Moana Pasifika to come play for the All Blacks. So they can still do that. So that's what I'm saying. And then is a person gonna say no to play for New Zealand? I highly doubt it. So it's kind of like those weird things too that
Mm,
NZRU likes to be perceived. They're helping the Polynesian islands nations, but in reality, they get the first pickings, and they can do if they pick if like what you said, if they can pick somebody to play a test match, that person is not going to say no, and then they don't pick them for the World Cup year. It's the same kind of tactic, right? So that's what I can see can still happen with Moana Pasifika team. So
yeah.
that's where I'm
Well,
seeing
see,
that happening.
and that's actually a perfect segue because that to me, that to me is fake news, and I'll
Mm,
share with you why. So this video we're gonna watch, and I guess I'll save my comments to get to the video. Um,
okay.
but New Zealand is trying to present themselves like we're the ones promoting Pacifica rugby, right? And I'm like, hold on, that's like Joe Biden taking credit for Donald Trump's economy, in my opinion. Okay,
Mm,
you didn't, and I'll let this play because here's the video right here, and I guess I'll use the the what you call the title of the video. I'll give my response to,
Okay.
and it says the miracle of Moana Pasifika. Right?
Hmm.
Can you see that title right here at
Yep.
the top?
Yep.
And New Zealand right now is trying to position it like, wow, look at what New Zealand rugby is doing for Pacifica rugby, right?
Mm.
How did we end up in this situation with these Pacifica teams joining Super Rugby?
They're joining
What
because
happened?
in they're in desperate times because Super Rugby is like really a dying kind of competition. So they had to do something new.
Yes. Who left? Who left Super Rugby?
So the South African teams.
Yes. The South African teams were the ones keeping Super Rugby afloat. The Australian teams, too, the Australians bring a lot more financial strength than the New Zealand teams, and the Australians, too. But it was the South Africans who were carrying Super Rugby for the longest time because their teams, their clubs were much more financially strong and they
Mm.
were selling more tickets in South Africa,
Probably
right?
getting better, probably get bigger sponsorship deals because of the viewership from their country too.
Exactly. Exactly. So, do you know how long they've been talking about Super Rugby should have a Pacifica team? Since I was in Tonga, they've been talking about that.
Oh
But
wow,
why did that never happen?
there was no
Because
need to.
New Zealand, there's no need to. So I
Mm.
kind of get annoyed when I hear, look at what New Zealand rugby is doing for Pacifica and the miracle of the Moana Pacifica, and it's because Super lies. You the only reason why you did it is because you had no option but to do it.
Correct, correct.
Because South Africa left and no one there wasn't enough talent, there wasn't enough money, and it was out of desperation. They were basically forced to Super Rugby had a gun to their head and they were forced to make a decision, and then now they're acting like, look at how smart we are. Look at how outreach hand we are. I was like, no, no, no. Let's just say it's working out great, but don't make it sound like you did some amazing because if you're saying it was that amazing up front, you would have done it decades ago.
Mm.
Maybe I'm a
Mm.
little unfair to New Zealand Rugby Union, but that's
No, it
that's
sounds
how I
fair.
feel about that.
It sounds fair, and also when they were like, I think when you said though they were talking about it, didn't they start like the Islander team with the comp? They actually did run some tests, and it was getting popular, right?
And then they shut it down.
Yeah.
Right? You remember when it had Shionelawaki and the Fijian?
Yes, Lawaki.
They
Yeah.
were they were challenging everyone they were playing, the Maori All Blacks, the All Blacks and stuff. And then what happened the very next year? Shut it down
Yeah. Yeah.
for whatever reason, right? Here's an
Mm.
interesting question from Lupi Tupo on Facebook. She says, good dialogue. How can we improve the standard of sports in Pacific region, especially Tonga? What's your thoughts on that, Masi?
Ooh. Ooh. Um. Probably Pacific region in Tonga. To me, I think a big part of it will be government probably staying out of the governing sports, especially in
With
Tonga.
the
Uh,
corruption, yeah.
yeah, well, you just it's just there's a lot of political interest. They're using it. They're using it as an interest to drive their interest within their politics in the country, but that's not good because the sport should be sport in general. The better product always happens when they're out of politics and they're just doing it on their own. It's almost like a sport is where people just come and just have a good time. And the thing is, you've got to put people in that know the sport and are willing to drive it in a consistent way. I think the problem with some of the Pacific region, like what Lupi Tupo is sharing, there hasn't been a long consistency without any government involvement. I think there's every time there's a government involvement with especially the governing structure of the Polynesian teams, there tends to be there's always like a high and always up and down a lot, and there's not a consistency. But I think we just there needs to be a separate board without government influence and interest in it, and let that run on its own to develop the sport and running the sport in a full, like, to optimize it to its full potential. That's just me, Dua, but I don't know if
Mm,
you have any further
yeah.
details that maybe you think they can help, especially with the poly, because I Tonga, Samoa, and Fiji has lately kind of been pushing because I think it's helping. They've 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 done really well to advocate to have their own Polynesian team with the Fijian Drua. I don't think All Blacks can the All Blacks pick anyone from their team, or is that specifically just for Fiji? See, I don't know the rules regarding
I
that,
don't know the rules for that either. The
but
fact
I'm
that
just
they're
saying
based outside of New Zealand tells me that the current rules probably say they can't.
they can't. So
I
you
don't
know,
know.
but yeah, that's just me with especially with the Tonga and Samoa teams with some of their domestic or some of the issues they're kind of facing with governing. What
Mm.
do you think? What do you think, Dua?
I don't know because this is a very difficult thing, right? Like, there's so much that needs to happen that I might have to default to your position, Mussy, because the first step, and I was just watching a interview with Bill Belichick, right?
Mm,
And he said the first step to winning the football game is to make sure you don't lose it
mm,
yourself. And what does that mean? That just means eliminate your own errors first. Before you can make this amazing offensive play, just make sure you don't have a turnover, right? Don't throw interceptions, don't fumble the ball, don't have um, false starts or pre-snap penalties. Just
mm.
don't trip over your own feet. That's the first one. And I feel that like Tonga, Samoa, and even Fiji, one of the biggest challenges we have, like you're saying, it's the government. The government gets in the way and we trip over our own feet, right? The
Mm.
corruption comes, we can't even get over our own feet. So it's really hard to kind of think like how we can accelerate when maybe what we need to focus on is before we focus about accelerating, how are we tripping over our own feet? And maybe it's along what you're saying is government needs to get out of the way. But the reality is the government is the one who decides all those things. So really, you can't get government out of the way.
Well, here's the example tool where things can really take off and do well. We don't need government because I think government has done. It's they started, but they need to get out. That's the issue. But people like that authority to a point because it gives them that influence. But for example, the Matema Tonga, it's willing to run on its own if we're able to get structurally get that better. Because right now the problem is the right there's the international because I think it's still under um what international rugby, like it's not even run by Tonga at the moment, Tua, because there's like in a
Yeah,
court case. So
yeah, because of
I,
that Tonga National Rugby League is still, I guess, the official representative for International Rugby Federation.
yes. So what I'm trying to say is Mate Matonga has the brand name. It's selling out stadiums. Right now, you just need the right people to be in. Once this whole court case can get settled and stuff, and that's what I'm trying to say. That government can remove itself because right now, like you said, the government is there because they do put some funds to help. Let's just say like Karitahi kind of said, but like I said, Ekaretahi can get to the same level as Mate Matonga once. But the thing is, you're gonna need the right people to run it, and also you're gonna be able to probably improve some of the rules regarding the World Rugby with players transferring between nations and that. So that's gonna be helpful because like to me, Mate Matonga is gonna be an organization that'll be able to run on its own without
Yeah,
government without government appointing a chairman or having some kind of interest in it. So that's just kind of what I'm. mentioned there.
Yeah,
Do I?
I guess if I were to make a decision, if I had to make a decision on this, I would probably do a couple things, and I would probably look to see if we could get in a private equity investment firm
Mm,
to invest into the national teams, right? And really focus on building up that brand, like the Mate Maatonga, right? Even the Ikaletahi. But how that would impact the local sports in the Pacific, it would be number one to grow those brands. Those brands have to grow, right? You have to get Mate Maatonga to grow. You have to get the Ikaletahi to grow, and people to get excited about participating in that. I guess the next thing I would really, really say would be really important is, as weird as this sounds, there should be an effort to get Tongans overseas to invest in Tonga, right? We kind of mentioned this and we've talked about this on the podcast. There's too many of this. Oh, we need to, oh, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't even consider it. That private investment firm should maybe be some Tongans overseas
mm,
who have money, right?
mm,
Like some of the NFL guys or whatever, to invest into those brands. Maybe that's an option to really just give it the financial strength and independence to get out of the government's way, but still have access to World Rugby's funds to help develop it,
mm,
and try to maximize that. And then the other thing too is just try and get more Tongans overseas to invest in Tonga, because you need infrastructure in Tonga, you need economic opportunity in
mm,
Tonga. The reason why I think Fiji is doing really well and has excelled above Samoa and Tonga, they have way more economic activity. They're a
mm,
larger economy, they have more land. So Tonga needs to figure out how to create and generate more economic activity domestically. That will eventually lead to more sports, whether it's more infrastructure, better competitions. But I really think you have to get more Tongans overseas to invest in Tonga. But some of these Tongans overseas are complaining, we want to invest in Tonga, but the Tongan government is making it so painful and difficult that they can't.
agree. Yes, that because that was some of the feedback that the government is receiving. Right, is the government services is making it so difficult for people from overseas to get that access to get their money going into the country. So yeah, I see that point.
Oh, here's a hey Josh, ooh, coming out with like the brains. Josh Lee says, so Tonga not getting colonized has no benefit. What are your thoughts on that, Masi?
So Tonga not getting colonized has no benefit. No, Tonga not getting colonized is a huge benefit. I'm just saying these are the stuff that we like to talk of this stuff because if we had to choose any other way, I like the way that's happened, how Tonga played out. That's what I'm trying to
Exactly.
say, Josh. Like it's sport thing is a nice and fun thing, but when you talk about a significant thing that probably no indigenous people has ever achieved, I'll take that. Sports is a different category of importance, and I think most Tongans would say the same thing in that category. So to me, this is it's the same thing when we talk about immigration. Tua, we always say the immigration getting access to other countries is going to be a longer process for our Tonga, but we'll take that longer process because we love the freedom and the lands that we have at the moment because of the not being colonized. So that's it's kind of like what we kind of mentioned before. We can't have everything. The world is not perfect, but we like how it played out during this time, and we're very fortunate to our ancestors that have done that. But hey, it's what the cards were dealt with, and we just have to figure this other avenue, especially with our sports, like we mentioned, Tua, with increasing the capital to build better infrastructure to have a better outcome with our national sport team. So that's just me. I don't know. Do you have anything for Josh E's comment?
Yeah, my response is performing in sports is a branch on the tree, and that is something I'm willing to sacrifice to keep the root, i.e., freedom, governance, our way of living, our language, our culture.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm willing to sacrifice winning a World Cup for that.
Yeah,
As much as I would
100%.
love to win the World Cup, as much as I would love to win a World Cup, I would rather keep independence as a priority.
Well, Dua, and here's the thing, right? Not being not being colonized. What was the benefit? Why did it take a Mate Tonga team to fill out stadiums in New Zealand? Why is that? Most people, no matter how many generations somebody's been removed from Tonga, they still find it close. Because you can remember, Germany took over Samoa, and then the British through New Zealand took over Samoa. There's a lot more Samoas in here in New Zealand, but they weren't able to sell out to Samoa games like the Mate Tonga. And not only that, many of their players were not picking to go play for Toa
Yeah,
Samoa. It was
it
like
took the
towards the end.
Tonga to start that
What what
revolution.
why was the Mate Tonga able to do that? Culturally, you can say it's stronger because it was not tainted. Two, the language is a lot deeper. Three, the family connections through cultural practice that many overseas Tongans still practice, and people still get a sense of identity being Tongan through that, even though a lot of them have not been in Tonga. So they feel more obligation to support Tonga, and they feel more Tongan than many of our other Polynesian, because we can say Tonga is by far the smallest. A lot of the other Polynesian islands are bigger because they
They
had,
should have
remember,
done it first.
they had mass. Fiji has mass migrations from India. Their population is much bigger as an overall. Samoa, migration of Chinese, Germans, British till now, their population has gotten bigger. So Tonga's the because, like I said, Tonga were never colonized. It's always been our natural population. We're the smallest, but we're filling up Mount Mount Smart Stadium multiple times, even the Australia with this past games. So that's the benefit of not being colonized. We're much a united people as a whole, as the root, and that's the benefit, Josh E.
No, 100%. And I think I wanna pull on that string there about the Mate Tonga Masi and this
Mm,
whole thing. This is a big belief of, I believe, of this platform that we're expressing in this message to all Polynesians. The fact that Tonga survived colonization is a win for all
correct.
Polynesians across the board, because we are one culture. We were one government. We were one country, and we are one people. And because the root survived, the branches can then be benefited when that
Mm.
root. And let's just use the Matematonga for an example, right? What happened right after Matematonga did it first?
To
Samoa
Samoa,
followed through.
yes, yeah.
Fiji players started to choose Fiji more. And so that to me is a prime example. It's a microcosm
Mm,
of what the bigger picture of what our people as Polynesians need to see and believe. And many can say, "Oh, you're just prideful because you're Tongan." We're Tongan, Samoan, and Fijian. I've done the DNA. It's
correct.
true, and our oral history is true. And so that is something that I think is really important. And in all honesty, um, this is like Masi, you were saying, the fact that other nations were colonized, they had access to resources much sooner than we did, right?
Hmm.
Because they were able to go to overseas decades before Tongans did, establish populations in these foreign countries, in the US and New Zealand,
Hmm.
right? Because of American Samoa um, and
Correct.
Western Samoa being under New Zealand. In all honesty, that is further proof that it was worth chipping off and surviving, keeping colonization. Because I don't know how to say this and not to come across the wrong way. But a lot of our brothers and sisters have access to quote unquote economic resources and opportunities overseas, but we're almost at the same stage. Samoa is slightly ahead, you know, because especially here in the U.S. Because they infiltrated the U.S. a lot sooner than Tongans did. Because we were an independent nation, it was a lot harder to come to the U.S. Same thing in New Zealand, but I don't see a overly advantageous position looking around now.
Mm,
So it was worth the pain and the sacrifice of keeping independence because we're now in many ways, like especially through the Mate Tonga, paving the way for our brothers and sisters to say, yeah, this is the path that we can help our parents and our ancestors by giving up the economic opportunity
yeah,
now by following the example that the Mate Tonga did.
yeah. And it's almost like that's like many of the Tongans they did. This light is only a temporary light before we can pass on the economic opportunities. It's what we have right now is only a temporary stay, and we'll take the side that it's um less fortunate with resources, but much more satisfying to the soul and spirit. That's what I would say.
100%. And I'm gonna skip the first video that I was gonna show at first because we've already kind of covered the whole point of that video, which
Okay.
was which was Moana Pasifika is doing great now, and New Zealand is trying to take this whole credit. Like, wow, look at us, we had such a great idea. When in reality, you had no other option. You can't come and say, I chose this. It's such a great choice when you had no other option but to do that. So you don't
So
get
you
the credit.
it's not a new idea. They just dust off some old ideas and then just say, okay, we have no choice. Let's insert this idea now. Let's go full on. We're not
That's
losing
how I
much.
see it. That's how I see it, right? When you're like so desperate, you're sinking, you're gonna do whatever you can grab on. That's it's like when you're hungry. When you're so hungry, all of a sudden the one thing you didn't like to eat, but now you're so hungry, all of a sudden you're just gonna eat that because there's no other option.
There's no
That's
other
how
option.
I feel it was. But am
Mm,
I glad that the option happened? Yes,
mm.
I'm glad. But at the same time, it has its challenges. So let's kind of get into this video because, and actually, some of this conversation is very relevant because I also believe, Ardie Savea has been the superstar lately, right? He's done some
Oh,
fantastic things.
yeah.
Um, but I will say, I don't know if he would have done what he did if Mate Maatonga and that whole thing and the success of the Mate Maatonga didn't happen,
Mm.
right? Because everyone said, already don't do it. You'll lose money. You'll lose your chance to play for the All Blacks. It's going to hurt your career. It's just a bad idea. And he did it anyway, which is very similar to what the Mate Maatonga did. But let's watch this video and get some reactions to it.
The idea of if you can't get to this weight, it's hard to see you in a team like
Excelling.
the All Blacks.
Yeah.
We're talking about 3, 4, 5 kgs here.
I told my wife I'm done, and I was just like 95% gone to France.
The out of it thing about Ardie Savea is he's one of the best and most loved rugby players in the world, but he's strangely very controversial. Many fans believe Ardie should be captain over Scott Barrett. Critics have said Ardie playing for Moana Pasifika is terrible for his All Black career.
But is it good for Ardie Savea if they have another season where they're second to last? Is that going to help us as All Black fans?
He negotiated his own NZR contract, is signed with Jay-Z's Rock Nation Sports. And most controversially, Steve Hansen didn't want to pick him in the All Blacks. This was despite several dominant seasons in Super Rugby. Hansen thought Ardie wasn't ready for the bigger bodies and collisions in test match rugby. Sam Cane was his man.
Hi, I'm Joe Delaney. Today we're going to talk about
what are your thoughts on that so far, Masi? That's some interesting.
No, I'm glad that Ardie Savea looks like it said that he negotiated. He's almost like pulling a Mayweather kind of thing, doing his own thing. There's a few NFL players that kind of do the same thing. I think Lamar Jackson, he does his own negotiation with his contract. regarding the NFL. So I think that's a good thing. It gives you a sense of autonomy, and you decide really what you want. Um, Dua, but I'm glad that he's doing that. It's a good step because I think this is the next step for Polynesians as a whole, that we can do things. This is the next thing. Like, we can't just be always just ready to play a game. This is the next step of when you
In the
can
progression.
negotiate progression. Next step, you can negotiate your own contracts, and hopefully, the further step is we can see more Polynesians actually owning and running some of these Super Rugby teams, or even being part of these franchises, that maybe we can get more influence to maybe change the game for the better. Because I'm a big fan of just let. I don't know why there's rules on not transferring players to play. Like, to me, fans are gonna. It creates more excitement. At the same time, you get all the best players playing in the competition. I think rules like 2 year stand down or whatever is a bit silly to me. If a person has any family members from that country or heritage, they should be able to play and let them play. That's just me, Tua. Some of the
Yeah.
quick reactions here from Ardie Savea.
To me, it feels like the Ardie Savea situation is like a microcosm of what New Zealand did to the Pacific Island teams for forever and ever, right?
Mm,
We know
mm,
the Pacific Island talent is the most exciting talent many times in rugby in the world, but for many times, they don't fit the mold for whatever reason. They're good for props and forwards, but they're not. We can't take them serious as fly halves and skilled positions. And it took for a long time for that to change. And also, I didn't realize that he signed with Jay-Z, a foreign group,
mm,
which may
mm,
be kind of what we talked about. Maybe that's what needs to happen in Tonga, Fiji, and Samoa to expedite the progress made there,
mm,
right?
mm,
Because if he signed with Jay-Z and them, and they're like, hey, no, 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 you don't have to sacrifice and follow their rules. If we think you can go here and you can be successful there and
yeah.
establish yourself, that's the route to take. And it's much more of an independent route
Mm,
rather than saying, I'm going to get stuck in this system.
mm. Yeah, good
So
point.
interesting. I didn't know that about him and the
Rock
American
Nation.
organization. Yeah.
Oh, looks like I'm not hearing it, Tua.
Oh,
Handle the contact better, like
There we
Sam
go.
yeah.
Kane.
There we
Let
Nope,
me go
he's
back
his own player.
just a
All
little bit.
Blacks
Right there.
fans demanded Ardie play 7 over Sam Kane. Why is he controversial? Ardie marches to his own beat, bulk up to handle the contact better like Sam Kane. Nope, he's his own player. The outrageous hairdos, prioritizing
Outrageous.
speed, fitness, and being an influencer, for lack of a better term, with his powerful brand off the field. Why is Ardie's weight controversial? For an 80-minute number 8, Ardie is undersized for test match rugby. Most number 8s play at a minimum of 110 kilograms, while Ardie barely makes 100 kilograms. Fans have been screaming from the rooftops for a bruising 8, like Kieran Reid, who stops huge runners on the spot. Or even someone like Shannon Frizzell, the most recent All Blacks enforcer. This would push Ardie to where most fans want him, open side, and a tall, fast bruiser like Frizzell at 8.
To the 22, and the ball. There is Frizzell. Frizzell! Oh my goodness!
But before we deep dive, let's have a look at where it all started. Ardie and his older brother Julian grew up in suburban Wellington, surrounded by loving family and friends. The brothers thrived, looking at their schoolboy tapes. The future rugby superstars had it all: fitness, excellent understanding of space and time, and brought it all together on the field. Remember to get your new All Blacks jersey. Just scan the QR code on screen or click.
You know what this makes me think of, Masi?
What's up?
Ardie Savea fits much better and is the next wave
of progression in professional sports that New Zealand is not ready for. Ardie Savea is much more in the US model where it's about the player and the player's brand and the player's following. See, New Zealand rugby, like in that video, said, "Oh, he has a brand, his big brand off his social media, influencing stuff and all this stuff outside of the game, not fitting into the mold of what they think a number 8 should be or whatever." That's like, to an American fan, consumer, or sports consumer, that's like, dude, LeBron James is the team.
Yeah,
Tom Brady
yeah.
is the team. Like, the team is built of players, and it's the character, it's the influence of the players themselves that makes the team valuable. The team is valuable because of the player, but New Zealand is still running off of the old school model of we have to crush everything else. There can only be the team
Mhm.
brand and the team thing. It's a very old school way of looking at professional sports.
Yeah, no, and that's interesting. Like, even if you take Jonah Lomu, should not never be a winger. If you go by size and
Yes.
weight, that's what I'm trying to say. And remember that Jonah Lomu, just being with his you know humble side, he kind of let New Zealand All Blacks dictate whatever he needed to be. It was only a pure luck of chance that a coach just put him there at number 7. I mean number 11, and then he just kind of took off with it. Because in reality, he should never be a number 11. He doesn't fit the mold, like what they were saying. Some of these coaches don't want Ardie Savea and being on the edge of not picking him because he didn't fit the mold of a number 8, a big running bruiser. So I was like, there's a lot of things that what you said to it, like, and that's probably a big hindrance on rugby not growing as quickly. Because if you think about it, rugby is still very light years behind of the other sports regarding salary and stuff, because it's the game hasn't evolved quick enough, because it's still in this medieval times mentality. And it's the game is suffering compared to the other sports, and you're starting to see it. Like, I think there's some other players that are trying to do these NFL international tour, and even Mailata even said that the pay that these guys in rugby. I saw an interview. He said he said he doesn't know why they still get paid that way. You know,
Yeah.
and he's only been in the NFL only a couple of years, and his mind is being opened on. The game it's much more than just a team. It's the player, and focusing on new ideas on how to ch- change each position. Position is not defined on what size you need to be to fit that mold. People
Yeah.
can redefine the position. I mean, dude, look at centers. Centers are not supposed to be shooting threes anymore or shooting jump shots. Before it was
Yeah.
all dunk, and now it's jump shots, and now it's out 3 phases. You can dunk, jump shot, and even shoot some
Shoot the
deep
threes.
threes. That's what I'm trying to say. There's like no things to change, and rugby is suffering its own problem, not willing to adapt. And maybe if, that's why that's why players only get paid, just $1 million. That's really low in today's professional sports standards of high end players. So that's just me, Dua.
No, and especially in rugby union. I mean, dude, in rugby union New Zealand, I don't even know how many players actually make $1 million
Mm.
in New Zealand. I mean, in rugby league, the superstars make $1 million, but I don't
Well,
know how many. I don't know how
league,
many rugby union guys actually make $1 million a year.
yeah, well, league, right? League is definitely moving on at a faster pace. That's for sure than
Mm,
union. Yeah.
10-4. Let's come back here real quick.
Click the link in the description.
Hey, let's get back to the report.
As Julian's career took off into the stratosphere, making the All Blacks in 2012, Ardie was rocketed into the New Zealand Sevens team as a teenager.
Very quick, the young 18-year-old.
Do you want to know where to invest it?
Oh, great. Let's. Any thoughts there, Masi, while we wait for this commercial to go through?
Nope. To me, I just can't wait for the day that rugby union can start making things much more interesting, like league. Right now, league. I think the discussion in league that's happening is the state of origin. Right, they've kind of gone past the international stage, and they're good with the transferring of players. But now it's gone to the state of origin, and they're kind of having that debate. But I just can't wait for the day that union just allows. You know what? Let the players decide where they want to play, and none of this stand down thing. Because to me, that will make union exciting again. That's just me, Dua.
I got a quick question, Mussy. Why is Union struggling so much in New Zealand that is a quote unquote rugby nation?
Well, when I was watching that Moana Pasifika game against Blues, it's been a while since on TV I saw a good amount of
The
crowd.
stands, yeah.
Yeah, you know,
And the
man.
excitement of the excitement of the fans during the game. Because I watched the highlights. I mean, the
Yeah,
fans were up there like pulling off their shirts, the flags.
yeah,
Usually, when I see a rugby union game, they're just sitting, everybody's watching, nobody gets super excited. But you go to an NRL, it gets more exciting on an NRL game.
yeah.
This may just come back to what we're talking about. Why are people super excited about Moana Pasifika? Because the players have character and personality, and it's the players that are driving the interest. Like Ardie Savea and what he's doing is what's getting that interest. And then to watch the players play an exciting brand of rugby, and to me, it's just like. And how often has rugby union changed their rules to be more entertaining to the fans? I feel like rugby union does this. The fans need to appreciate rugby union rather than rugby union saying, how can we better position ourselves for the fans? That's what rugby league does really well. Rugby league is much more thoughtful of what can we do to make the game more exciting and involve the players in the rules. Granted, outside of the game, they don't do as good as America in engaging fans. But I mean, just in regards to the product itself,
Product.
rugby league is much more willing to improve their product and make changes to make the product better. While I see New Zealand Rugby Union and Super Rugby, they're like, no, you need to appreciate the game for the game. It's like, no, man, like you got to realize that you're competing with the whole world now for entertainment,
Correct.
right? The young kids right now are not like Ardie Savea, where they're all about listening to the rugby and everything. Now these kids have YouTube influencers, they have
Netflix.
streamers, they have
Yeah.
all this stuff that you got to compete with. And I feel like rugby union, and especially New Zealand Rugby Union, is not trying to develop ways to make their product better. That's why I almost like laugh when they say, oh, we're gonna take over the American market. Can you please just win the New Zealand market first? If you cannot win the rugby country market, what makes you think you're gonna win the market in America that has football, that has baseball, that has basketball, and all these other
Hockey.
sports
Yeah.
to compete with?
Well, yeah, and I was just thinking too, it'll be interesting because, I have a good, you know, view of how what the attendance looks like in New Zealand for their Super Rugby. It'll be interesting to see. I think Australia is probably struggling too with the Super Rugby attendance because they haven't been so good. I've seen some of the Brumbies at home attendance not so good, and they tend to be the top team from Australia and the other
Mm-hmm.
Australian teams. It'll be interesting to find out how are the attendance for the local for the domestic competition, like in Europe and the top 14 in France and South Africa. If are they having better attendance with their games? I don't know. It could be a
The
global thing, or is it just a New Zealand Australia thing with the rugby union, Super Rugby?
I don't know the answer, but my gut feeling is this, Masi. In Europe, it's it's not as it's not as filled in the stadiums as it is in South Africa. South Africa seems to have the strongest attendance from when I watch
Rugby.
the highlights
Yeah.
of the games. The thing with Europe is there's a lot more money, and they have a billionaire who like subsidizes it, right?
Mm.
It seems like the European model is for like in France and stuff. And the clubs and stuff are a little bit more self-sufficient. New Zealand, it almost feels like it's subsidized by the government. That's what I feel like this, like a lot of these clubs and stuff, it feels like they're subsidized because I don't see how they're making money. I don't know.
Well, a lot of NZRU is heavily subsidized by the government. So it's really hard to gauge how they're doing when they're relying on government kickbacks.
Well,
You
when
know?
taxpayer dollars is what's really funding you.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, and that may be and that's the problem. That's the problem when you get taxpayer dollars because you don't have to compete. You aren't forced to be creative because, oh, we're just going to get subsidized,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
But when you're saying, hey, dude, you either figure this out or you're going to go out of business or shut down, all of a sudden you're more willing to be creative. Just like the Moana Pasifika, right? When you have no other option, all of a sudden you're willing to try something new. But when you had South Africa in Super Rugby, you weren't willing to try something new.
Yeah. Just keep the status quo.
Just keep the status quo.
Mm.
Interesting.
Well, it's the same thing. You can take isn't it the same problem when you have universal health care? People, there's the innovation with new medical practice and
It
innovation in
stops.
medical, it stops because you get subsidized by the government. It's for everybody. But when it's like a little bit like privatized, there's a reason why all the new technology with medical equipment and new medicines come from the US because they're willing to try new things to keep pushing the innovation further. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
because the
maybe
market rewards them. The market
market
rewards them when they come up with something that works.
new, correct. Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Oh, it's silent. Tua.
Oh, geez. This is the problem of having only one screen.
One screen.
I can't see when it's.
There we go.
Kiwi fans didn't know who he was before his Sevens inauguration. They definitely did by the end of the Sevens season. Instantly, the prodigy made his debut for his beloved Hurricanes. The hometown kid gave everyone a glimpse of what was to come. Incredible power and technique in the tackle. Ardie was dominant in the Bunnings NPC, or Mitre 10 NPC, or ITM NPC, or Placemakers NPC, or Timber Merchant NPC, or whatever they called it back in 2013. Then came the All Blacks, kind of call up on the end of year tour, a non-playing apprentice. If you were like me, you thought Ardie would debut for the All Blacks in 2014 or 2015. No, Steve Hansen chose proven battlers Liam Messam, Sam Cane, Victor Vito, and Jerome Kaino. Ardie must have been third or fourth in line at 7 with McCaw, Sam Cane, and Matt Todd ahead of him.
These are the classic crew trigs by Mott and Bow, by far.
Interesting.
I just kind of blown away. Like I said, it doesn't seem like there's a vision for the future of trying to do something different, trying to be open to new ideas. It's just kind of like status quo. We're always going to have the Polynesian talent. We don't have to compete. We don't have to try and improve our product. We're just going to do the same thing over and over. I don't know. That's crazy.
It's great. So he had the opportunity to be picked in 2014, but just because he didn't fit the mold of the size, huh? And
yeah,
interesting.
The mold, the size, apparently the way he plays is unorthodox, right? Like, especially when you watch what he's doing now, the guy is kicking for touch. The guy's chip and chase. He's doing all kinds of stuff, but it's like, oh no, you just have to fit in the mold. And I'm like,
run bruiser, tackling bruiser kind of person.
Yeah. But the thing is, he was providing that. Even though he was quote unquote undersized, he was providing that. But I mean, granted, I don't like that it was done this way, but it's actually working good overall because this is probably things that motivated him to go to Moana Pasifika and made him
Well,
think differently.
yeah. Well, and here's the powerful thing that he did going to Moana Pasifika. Now, when I think of Pasifika, I think of Ardie Savea's face. Like he's the face
Yeah.
of it, and maybe that there's another positive outcome for people who think like he's just gonna be a lot more prominent in people's minds. You know,
No,
like
100%. And
yeah.
look at the impact it's having on attendance and support and
Mm,
fans showing up. I mean, I was like watching the last Blues game and I was like, dude, is this an NRL game? Like,
yeah.
why are the
Yeah.
fans so into it? Like, I've never seen
A
Super
Super
Rugby
Rugby.
in New Zealand that even in Australia, it's not that type of emotion
Mm,
and excitement. And
mm,
this is one more example of why New Zealand needs to adopt the model of your players are your product.
yeah.
That is what you're selling. You need to sell your players because that's what's going to bring in the fans to the sport. And
Mm,
I was watching this other podcast that was making some observations, Masi.
yeah.
When they beat, who did they beat? Was it Wellington? Who was it? Who was it that they beat like last week or the week before? I can't remember who it was, or maybe it was the
Well,
Crusade. I can't remember who it was.
let me see here. The Moana Pasifika team tour. So
Yeah,
they played the Blues this week. Last week was the Highlanders they beat, and
it
then
was
they
the
played the
Highlanders.
okay.
It was the Highlanders. And you know what was crazy? Do you know who all the kids after the game? Guess who they all went up to?
Ardie Savea.
Ardie Savea,
Mm,
right?
mm,
See, all the things that they criticized him for, his engagement in social media, working on his branding outside of the game,
mm,
right?
mm.
His involvement outside of the game in other things. That's what's making him the draw and the support,
Yeah.
right? That's why everyone's excited about him. Even when he's at away games, he's still the superstar because there's no one else really doing that.
Uh-huh.
But that was all the negatives, is why they weren't willing to make him the premier or the preferred choice for number 7, on top of being undersized and being unconventional. See, it's all working out well for him now, but
Yeah.
it wasn't a few years ago.
Mm. Oh, put the sound on Tua.
Oh,
Like that.
oh yeah. Some people never learn.
At home in the Super Rugby
There we go.
final. An injured Ardie's watched from the sidelines after picking up an injury in the semi-final the week before. But 2016 and Ardie and the Canes went all the way, and Ardie finally made his debut for the All Blacks. If the rugby world hadn't seen his explosiveness before, they got their first taste that night and the following week.
There, and Reed breaks away. 15 metres out. Here's Ardie Savea on the charge. Takes it.
Big line out where the backs come in, but they've got to get it right in the first instance. Coles gets it, offloads to Savea, explosive.
Then there was this long-range stunner.
Away, Perenara. But Ardie Savea.
Jeez, undersized.
Nice.
Unconventional.
Spectacular try.
Oh, and that sun try. That started with, you would have to say, probably one of the worst kicks Ryan Cotty's ever executed.
Like he did in Super Rugby, he was shrugging defenders off, carrying what seems like the whole forward pack, and gaining crazy meters after contact. But like in Super Rugby, he looked like a centre in the 7 jersey with his insane line running.
Aaron Smith again. Ardie Savea stepping, holding it up, gives it back to Aaron Smith. Ben Smith! And in goes Aaron Smith. Looks to hand it off, does to Ardie Savea. And in.
If you were like me and thought the All Blacks would carry on their winning ways post-McCaw because they have Ardie and Sam Cane, the amazing Irish had other ideas.
Picks it up quickly and off he goes. Drops it off the head.
Who's coming?
It's just crazy to me now that we're looking at the highlights and stuff. To just not see what he could be. Maybe we're saying that now because he's doing so great. I don't know. He's done so much since then that now we're all talking about him. I don't know if I'm just speaking of hindsight's 2020, but I'm just shocked.
Interesting. No, interesting. And there's been talk on that some of the people that I've kind of listened to on some of their commentary that the All Blacks the other countries are starting to get catching up to where the All Blacks used to be pretty dominant in international matches, but because now that pool is not as the first pickings like it used to be, do it with the first picking of Polynesians, but now you're seeing like that Bundy guy doing well in the Samoan guy doing well in
Ireland.
Japan is always there with some Polynesians, and then New Zealand still maintaining its rule, not picking, former players
who are playing in foreign competitions.
Foreign competition, it's they don't. You start to see them lose a lot more because they're not being so dominant, because it's almost like they're shooting themselves in the foot. Like, you gotta adapt to be changing some rules to be maintain excellence, but we'll see. I guess the other countries are fine, catching up with it.
Yeah,
But
they
New
like
Zealand,
it.
they like it, but New Zealand, like I'm just thinking guys like what's that kid Richie Mo'unga? He's playing in Japan and stuff. These guys are no longer eligible, and looks like the All Blacks are still going to maintain with their rule of. It's so weird, and this is the funny thing, and this is how this is a full control thing. They say they don't allow players to play in foreign competitions, but they have these things called sabbaticals that the NZRU can allow you within their contract for you to play overseas. So that route is okay. But if you go on your own to play overseas, you can't come back. It's almost like you have to have NZRU to always be involved in your negotiation. If they're not involved, they won't allow you to play overseas and not be selected for the All Blacks. But if you go and do your own thing without them, they won't pick you. Like, that's the weird thing. I don't know why many fans are not questioning that and throwing, or even the top programs for rugby commentary they think that's okay, and I don't feel like it's like, dang, me as more of a person that's actually been in different countries and in countries that run sports that make, like the NFL is the most valuable organized sports organization in the world. They allow these things. Like, none of that thing doesn't make sense, but in rugby, I guess that's fine. But I just find that really weird, that rule, sabbatical rule. You can play overseas competitions with them knowing, but they can still pick you for the All Blacks. But if you do on your own, they can't pick you. I find that really weird. But I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think, Mussy, these are all symptoms or driven by the fact that they're subsidized by the government.
Yeah.
They don't feel the pain of their bad choices. They don't feel it. They're like, oh, Shaipe, I can make this bad decision, but the government's gonna cover the cost anyway. So there's no incentive to try and get it right the first time. Right? Because it comes back to, you said, I'm trying to, now that we're having this conversation and you confirm that a lot of their stuff is subsidized, that explains why they're so stubborn and why they're so slow to change. They're basically acting like a government. they're not willing to make the change. And I think they overestimated their quote unquote systems and processes, when really they just had the resources, and this opportunity manifested itself naturally and not because of their management. They just had a good enough economy with a high population of raw talent with Polynesians, and not heavy competition from outside to pull this talent away from them. And so they thought they were so good because they were making all these great decisions, and the New Zealand way of doing rugby was just their great choices and blah blah blah. When it's kind of like, you know what? I'm starting to feel like, and maybe I could be wrong, I'm starting to feel like New Zealand's success with the All Blacks had less to do with this unique system that New Zealand had, and more of it was just they were more a result of their environment than I used to think before. I think you could have put anyone in that environment and they would have been successful to a high degree, right? Because if you look at it, they had a decent economy, even though it's struggling now. That's another thing that's hurting New Zealand rugby probably. Economy struggling. The Polynesian population, a lot of them are leaving to Australia. Even before, I can't tell you how many NRL players, they all say, oh yeah, I grew up in New Zealand, but then we moved here when I was 5 or 4. And there's a lot of that story. I mean, so they're losing not just the talent that's developed in New Zealand after they become pros, like Richie Mo'unga and Charles Putau. They're also losing a good portion of the talent leaving as kids.
Yeah.
Going to Australia because of economic opportunity. They were benefiting from people leaving Samoa and Tonga going to New Zealand because of economic opportunity. But now those same people are looking to Australia, and they're going to Australia now. And they're going to the NRL. So I'm starting to think that the New Zealand way of rugby, it wasn't necessarily they had some kind of system. They were just in a really good spot where the economy was doing good. They had the large talent pool, and they could exercise control with very little negative impact. But now that the environment has changed and they're not willing to adapt, they're exposing the weaknesses in their system.
Well, and and this is the interesting thing, Tua, like, with this whole reset with the whole economy and the trade, New Zealand government might have to rethink its always propping for these sports, and they need to focus on other things like defense and infrastructure and all these other things. And maybe, and then that's when NZRU really needs to wear the big boy pants and face the world as an independent organization, sports competing in the world.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting, man.
Because didn't they have some kind of big issue with some huge sponsor that just pulled out from them, like some kind of insurance company?
The Enos, that big, the Enos, the front jersey. They're an insurance company. They pulled out. I've heard that the Ford has also pulled out, and what's that New Zealand beer, Strangler or Stylager, I think. They used to be called the Stylager mid test, but now they've pulled out, and it's just called the mid test now. When France, I think they're playing against France this year, so it's even the sponsorship. NZRU has said they're financially okay, but they will always say that. But when you get like the major sponsor Enos, the New
Pulling
Zealand
out.
beer, Stylager, and also the Ford have pulled out. Yeah, that's not a good sign for the future looking of the organization. So yeah, it's very interesting, Tua.
Yeah, so I guess the two main reasons that you should be concerned is, or to explain it is, either your brand is weakening and you're not getting the eyeballs that you usually get with the brand, or the economy is so bad that they don't have the same funds for sponsorship. And it may be both. The worst case scenario is it's both of those things.
Yeah. So there's some real issues facing New Zealand rugby. So they don't adapt. Usually in business, right? You don't adapt or anything. You tend to
You
lose
die.
your influence, and then your last lifeline is the government funding or subsidies they're giving you. Once the government pulls that off, then you're dead in the water.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, maybe Man, that would be kind of crazy to think that one of the greatest brands in rugby could be in financial collapse.
Mm. Oh, I don't
had
think
new
I'm hearing
tricks up their
sound.
sleeves
There we go.
in the form of great phase play and bullocking forward runners. The question was, how would the All Blacks slow down these great runners? Sam Cane in the loose is one of the best front-on tacklers in world rugby because of his power
Seen
and
like 3
his
high
speed.
hits in a
To be
row
fair,
from the All Blacks.
that's something Sam Cane does better than Ardie because of the weight difference. As the Lions tour of 2017 approached, did the All Blacks have the firepower behind Sam Cane, Jerome Kano and Kieran Red to stop the Lions forwards? You'd have to say they did, but poor discipline and strange officiating cost the All Blacks the series.
Like a man possessed there. So cool from Cruden. Look at
Crazy.
So Ardie was his bollocking best off the bench, but he still wasn't trusted to start the biggest games in front of Sam Cane until this game.
Mussy making the tackle. Straight off.
Sam Cane went down in Pretoria with a life-threatening neck injury, and all of a sudden, Ardie was the last man standing. 1 year out from the World Cup, the 7 stocks looked thin, but how did Ardie go?
There's just one real estate asset, ordinary.
Thanks. So Ardie was not even selected. It took an injury for them to finally put him in. Same
That's
kind of
what I was
concept with
gonna say.
Moana Pasifika team being introduced.
So once again, you can't take the credit when that was the only option. You were forced to. It's like Moana Pasifika. You can't say you did this great thing when it's just like, well, we had no option.
There's
so
nothing else I can do.
There's nothing else I can do. That is freaking hilarious, man. I didn't see this is kind of interesting. I didn't know that it was all this circumstantial stuff.
Started a stunning performance with the All Blacks winning at the death thanks to a 78th minute Ardie steal.
So Ardie Savea comes in and wins the game.
The All Blacks have the 10 seconds to play in Pretoria. Ioane waits out wide.
To make sure everyone knew he'd hit the top of his hero arc, Ardie scored the match-winning try a minute later.
Marmion for Stander.
Ardie's awesome ball playing, footwork, misdirections, and amazing core and leg strength in the tight stuff was there for all to see.
Penalty coming, All Blacks way. Savea.
Penalty advantage.
Still outside the 20.
Was there a drop-off? Now that Ardie was the first choice back rower alongside Kieran Reid, Ardie excelled in the loose and in the tight stuff.
Hey, who's that team? 64-0.
What was that, Mussy?
No, I was gonna say what was that team that 64-0
Was
highlight?
it the Ikaretahi?
Hey, no worries about that one. We'll go ahead and pretend that didn't happen.
That's because we didn't have the Mate Tonga team playing.
Yeah, lucky. My team playing, we would have. That would have been a 70-0 zip for the All Blacks if Mate Tonga was playing. Lucky, very lucky.
Lucky.
Yeah.
From Ardie Savea through free. Ardie Savea.
Man, he's been doing what he's doing with the Moana Pasifika since forever.
Takes his position at the back of the maul, ripped free by Ardie Savea, but knocks it forward.
2019, Ardie was everywhere. England, with their masterful game plan, avoided being tackled around Ardie like he had COVID, even though it was 2019 and COVID came out a few months after this game.
This guy happy to rumble over the top. Tuolangi touch isolated. Still, he's Laws. Another crack at New Zealand. It's muck over the collar.
The English were amazing, precise running lines, huge bodies over the ball in a blink of an eye. The few opportunities Ardie and the All Blacks got, England shut them down within a flash.
Sinclair. Scrappy at the back. Backwards is a call, and Ben Young was immediately
Of course, you can never shut down Ardie Savea. He will always influence the game.
Makes the tackle, bounces to his feet, and does it again. Ardie
Penalty.
Savea. George. Oh, it's overthrown too. Ardie Savea, New Zealand are on the board. Game on. Is the switch for Savea, and he runs in it.
The All Blacks bounced back in 2020 with Ardie running like a centre and becoming one of World Rugby's premier players.
What a brilliant try by the All Blacks! Oh, what are we witnessing here? Caleb Clark carries with that number 6 on his back, and now Ardie Savea busting through. Can he sneak it away? Oh, he doesn't need to. Brilliant try by Ardie Savea. That's just high quality set piece from the.
Ardie continued his formidable run, even in a struggling All Black team, his supreme conditioning, the number of times he's involved in the game, it's incredible. And top of that, the line breaks in the open and in the tight, amazing strength in the tackle.
Well, they're getting tense too.
Bit of improvisation there from Aaron Smith.
Tackle it away.
The heartache of the World Cup final loss was offset a bit by Ardie winning World Rugby Player of the Year. Ardie was amazing, even though he almost got knocked out.
And the thing is, for Ardie Savea, he's upright. He's not dipping at all. That's the concern for mine for Tia Kolesi. You see, he's second man in an attack.
In 2024, a change came with new coach Scott Robertson. Ardie had a different role with attacking phenom Wallace Sititi, making the 6th jersey his own. Ardie found himself in the tight more, but of course, with Ardie's 6 skills, no team can ever keep him from a crazy line break or two.
Clark's got it now. Savea set it back in field. He goes.
So here we are, the beginning of Super Rugby 2025. As if he didn't need more motivation to break Super Rugby, he's been told he's going to be a bust because he's playing for Moana Pasifika. As if there haven't been top All Blacks and struggling Super Rugby teams before.
Aaron Smith, step up. Sure, Lomu is going to get this.
Interesting.
So the man that marches to his own beat is Super Rugby with Moana Pasifika going to keep him at the top of his game. I believe it will. Players at that level need extra motivation after years at the top. And Ardie, he looks like he's found his home with Moana. Make sure to like and...
Interesting.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Any thoughts on that, Masi? What are your thoughts watching this?
I mean, something's going on. Like I said, I've seen many Super Rugby games. Usually the crowds don't start filling up till like second round into the playoffs. You know what I mean? But like for a season game and watching the Auckland Blues and the Moana Pasifika play, it's been a while since I've been since I've seen a nice crowd like that in a season game. So something's going good, right? So I think the only difference you can only probably say is Ardie Savea now is playing for the Moana Pasifika team. So, and the funny thing is, I was just looking at the record. They're only like 6-6, 6 wins, 6 losses. So they're right in the middle, but seems like some of the positive attention is just going Moana Pasifika. That's people are just willing to show up to watch their games. They're a lot more exciting. So that's just kind of my observation, Tua, regarding this. I don't know. You have anything different?
Yeah, I think there's the Ardie Savea is the pillar. He's the main guy. And then you just have a bunch of other guys just performing really well. It's the Pellegrini, you have the Havili guy, and then the guy who plays wing, Tupo, or what's the young kid that's also
he plays for that. Yes.
Right? And then you have all these other, it feels like Ardie Savea is like the cornerstone of the team, and he's playing fantastic rugby, but it's also these young players and less known players that are also performing off the charts. It just feels like the team is full of energy, full of excitement, and Ardie is really just allowing them to accomplish things that they never would have accomplished, I think, if he wasn't there. And also just the attention that he brings to them. if Ardie wasn't on that team, these guys could be performing really well, but no one would be paying as much attention. I don't know.
Yeah, I see that. I see that. I see that too, Dor. I see that.
I think we'll have our closing thoughts here, and I'll kind of give my closing thoughts, and then you can close for us, Mussy. But I think there's a lesson to be learned in observing Ardie Savea and what he is doing, because it feels like there is a movement of change that New Zealand Rugby Union is on the short end of that stick, and they will remain on that short end of the stick, and that short end will only get shorter if they don't figure out a way to address this and to adapt. Because if they continue to do the same old thing, hopefully it doesn't happen, but I can see this possibly happen. One of the most iconic brands could be bankrupt and, go from one of the most feared teams in the world to one that's just trying to stay alive on life support. And as much as I'm not a big All Blacks fan, but I like rugby. I prefer rugby league, but I like rugby, and I don't want to see that because the All Blacks are such an important brand to that sport that it would be really unfortunate if they get into a really tough position financially that will hurt the overall game itself. But really appreciate people like Ardie Savea, who he sounds like someone who really thinks out of the box, is willing to do new things. It kind of feels like I always thought that maybe he was just doing fine and doing great, but now watching this, he's had a lot of opposition and challenges in his career. And kudos to him for being diligent, sticking hard, pushing through with it, and then not falling into the temptation of, because he was half accepted, to concede more in order to maintain what he's been accepted for, quote unquote. But he's willing to give that up to pursue his own path. And it's paying for him in colors, in spades, because he's doing so well as a personal person and his personal brand, and also the impact on the Polynesian sports. And this is going to have an impact on future Polynesian athletes on how they make decisions on their career. So good Ardie, and wish him the best. And it's really exciting to see a team in Super Rugby that's getting fans super excited and super involved. But those are my closing thoughts, Mr. Aotearoa. You want to close us out?
Yeah. Closing thoughts. Enjoyed our discussion regarding the Mariner account being shared by Lolo on his findings and his interpretations of the Mariners account. Enjoyed us talking about the spiritual connection, and just remind us that we are spiritual people, as verified in the Mariners account, and also talking about sports. Like I said, it was almost invigorating seeing. We talked yesterday, Toa. I was talking and still watching. I was like, and that's the thing that came to my mind. It's like, hey, this crowd is a bit different than the previous Super Rugby games I've been watching. Just speaking with you and watching at the same time. But I think a lot of that is people are sensing the incitement from Ardie Savea, staying true to who he is as a player, not being affected by other people thinking he should be like somebody else. But I hope they have a good season, and is in a bigger change that world rugby union can be better. Like I said, I tend to cheer for the New Zealand All Blacks because it tends to have the most Polynesians, Tongans in it. So I always tend to cheer for them against international teams. In most, I think only a couple times I've kind of rooted for Australia because there was more Polynesians that started on the first 15. So that's kind of the main reason why I kind of follow the All Blacks, just to see who's the up and coming and who's some of the new names that are playing for or playing in international rugby matches. So that's just my spill. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, viewing us, and sticking with us in this live digital kava session on the Polynesianized podcast. We appreciate you, and keep shooting some questions and comments. We always look at them and try our best to respond to all of them. Wish you guys all the best. And just the two questions the Polynesianized podcast always leave with everyone is stay curious and ask the hard questions. Ovatu, take care.
Peace.
Peace.